I believe it is our God-given birthright. I believe it is how we are born. It's our natural state. And it just gets chipped away over time. And our job is to go on that empowerment journey to get back to what empowerment means to me and what it means to you, Denise.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Bar podcast. I'm your host, Denise Tova. And today I have a very special treat for you. I have with me Diana Perkovic, a very dynamic empowerment coach. She's the founder of Empowerment 6 and also founder of empowerment brand Good Girl Mafia. And Diana helps women transition their lives and reach their fullest potential. And I'm really looking forward to diving into that piece and her journey from a successful TV career to becoming a sought-after coach is truly inspiring. And I look forward to diving deeper and learning more about Diana. Welcome to the show.
Denise, I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation. We were just saying behind the scenes, like this is going to be a lively discussion that I'm so looking forward to. So thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Don't thank me yet. The word empowerment, it seems to, it almost gets thrown around a lot these days. So what does true empowerment mean to you? And I'm interested in tying it back to you, Diana. How did you find this path?
Well, I believe, first of all, that the word empowerment, we as women need to take that word back and purify it, right? Empowerment has become this co-opted, politicized, branded, packaged, marketed, and sold definition of what female empowerment is. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, but about 2 years ago, I was hit by a Suburban crossing the street, and I had a level 3 concussion, and I was diagnosed with a subsequent traumatic brain injury. So for the first time, Denise, in my entire adult life, I was neither in front of nor behind a camera producing some kind of content or programming. It was the first time in my adult life I was a consumer. And that algorithm, girl, it knows what to send you, okay? And it was sending me all of this empowerment, this empowerment content. And I kept looking at it and I thought to myself, that's not what I'm seeing with my clients. And so I decided that if I get my voice back, if I can come back and do my empowerment work, if I can come back and speak on podcasts and on stages, that's what I really wanted to challenge women to do, Denise, was to define empowerment on their own terms. I believe it is our God-given birthright. I believe it is how we are born. It's our natural state. And it just gets chipped away over time. And our job is to go on that empowerment journey to get back to what empowerment means to me and what it means to you, Denise, and how to empower 360 degrees of our lives so that we can truly live out that empowered vision that we have for ourselves. And I do believe that we all have one. We all have a vision for our lives. It's, do we embark on a journey to get there or do we not? And that is at the heart of real empowerment in women.
That is, well, first of all, I am terribly sorry that I can't even imagine what that was like. How traumatic that was. Wow, it's like your life can change in a blink. How is that new? It almost sounds like you had this sort of a new lens. You were looking at the world through a new lens, including what empowerment was to you. How does that show up for you day to day?
It shows up, Denise, what a great question, first of all, because it really speaks to the fact that you feel like your entire disc got reformatted in reality. You know, you go through this period where every single aspect of your life is affected by a traumatic brain injury because your brain is the motherboard. That is the hard drive. That's what controls everything from your speech to your balance, to your ability to walk, to your ability to talk, to like your sleep, your hormones, your every single thing you can imagine is affected by a traumatic brain injury. And so one of the things that I learned very quickly was actually cats are barking and dogs are purring. Like it is actually opposite day for me. And it really felt as though, Denisa, in real time, I was reformatting myself, rebuilding myself. And as much as it was difficult, I also felt like, wow, how many people at this age and stage get to go through something where you get to reformat yourself all at the same time? Like every single thing that you think, that you do, that you believe, that you say, got to reformat. And that changed absolutely everything for me. I see life very differently. And Denise, it's not like I lived this charmed life, right? And things were easy for me. Like my entire life has been one of overcoming. But
Mm.
this particular incident and the fact that I was 10 years into my personal empowerment journey, I think that's what really changed the way I handled this particular challenge. And it also on the other end of it has completely changed me. And I think my empowerment has gone deeper and deeper and deeper because of it.
I don't even know where to start. This
Yeah.
is just what you said. My life has been full of overcoming. Someone's actually said that to me as well, that I'm a serial overcomer. Um, just, give me an I hate to say this, but give me a elevator speech version of your life, if you could. Your story. Tell me your story. Give me some examples of overcoming.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I just had this conversation with a friend of mine not that long ago, and I'm like, well, what story to tell? Right? Like I can go back in my life and I can say, okay, so 0 to 10. Well, there was a lot to overcome. And then I think 10 to 15, well, that was kind of tough too. Then I think 15 to 20, and I'm like, oh, that was unbelievably hard. Then 20 to 25, and then and every chapter of my life was a big thing, right? And I think whether you're talking about, food insecurity, or you're talking about, being the first in your family to go to university, or you have to put yourself through school, or, whatever it can be, like being an immigrant, leaving and going to another country by yourself when you're really young and doing all of these things. Or, my empowerment journey really started the night my father passed away, which I didn't know he was going to pass away. As a matter of fact, I left his hospital bedside and he said to me, Denisa, like, go back to work. I'm fine. Come back on Easter like we planned. And so I went back to my sister's place. And a few hours later, we get a phone call and it was like, he was gone. That was it. My marriage fell apart at the exact same time. And I, did the trifecta and left my really good job, right? It was a really good job of over a decade working on national television. And I just decided that none of this was in alignment with who I was. And, it kind of takes one to know one, Denise. So you know what it means when you have to work so hard to achieve your goals. And when you have, I always say when you come from less, you have to do more,
Mm.
right? And when you do more, walking away from that version of a dream that you had can be a really, really scary and difficult thing to do. But that is probably one of the clearest examples of empowerment, Denisa, because at this point, it wasn't happening to me anymore. I was starting to make the decisions that, wow, wait a second, this is not this is not going to be the rest of my life. I was designed for more. I aspire to have more. I know I can be more. And so I started on this journey about 10 years ago. So when I got hit by the Suburban, I remember like it didn't take but a couple of days for me to look up and be like, what is it now? Like, what am I not listening? Like, what am I not getting? What are you trying to get through to me? Because when you get hit by such a big vehicle, that going that fast and that hard, to walk away Denisa, the only thing you can say is that was a miracle.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's so traumatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about really big events and then making a decision about, okay, so will I continue to repeat that tape? Or will I have the courage to then sort of start living a life in alignment, even if it means that I may piss off some people? They'll be
Mhm.
like, she's different. I may lose some of the safety net. And I have to say this too. The beauty of this is that you and I have never met. As a matter of fact, I haven't even read up on you, who you are, your background. I've seen you on social media, and there's a certain energy and presence about you. So there's nothing scripted about what we're doing right now. You've never met me, just what you see out there. And yet I feel like there's so much in common. As a matter of fact, one of my questions, I was curious, is this world seems to be saturated with coaches.
Mhm.
And, and I wanted to ask you, how do you stand out? And I've learned it's through your story, and you're pulling me into your story. A lot of what you're saying resonates. So tell me about how, so then what happened? So you then made a decision to become a coach after? I mean, there must have been so much that went into it.
So much that went into it. I packed up my house and moved cross country, and I was going through a divorce, and I was, you know, wondering and wandering at the same time. I was wondering, like, what is next for me? And I was just wandering. Like, I didn't really know. And it was the first time, Denisa, in my life that Diana didn't have a plan. What? Even that was unusual. And people ask me, how did you become a coach? How did you become an empowerment coach? Honestly, Denisa, I do not remember the moment I made the decision. I can't really think of that defining moment. And so the only logical explanation I can come up with is that I think it chose me. I think it was
Mm,
a natural progression. And to your point, that there are so many coaches out there, I love that you bring that up. And as a coach who is qualified and who has studied, right, I appreciate you bringing that up and asking the question, because it has become, particularly since 2020, an oversaturated industry, and one that is not regulated. So, to anyone who's out there going through a really difficult time, I
mm,
want you to know a couple of things. Number one, I feel you, I see you, I know what it is like to not want to get up and get out of bed one day. I know what that feels like. What I will say to you is, reach out and find someone who can help you, but do your homework.
mm,
Ask, how specifically are you qualified? What are your certifications? For example, I have a master's certification in neurolinguistic programming. I'm certified as a motivational coach, social and emotional intelligence coach. I have 2 life coaching certifications. I take this, Denisa, very seriously, but I think the best coaches are the ones who have the education, but also the life experience. And
right.
that's what truly becomes embodiment. And I think that, as you said, sharing your story, sharing your qualifications, I think that's what's going to naturally draw people to you in the first place. And the fact that, quite honestly, Denisa, I get people results,
Mm,
period. Like,
mm,
I go into the trenches with women, and I'm proud to do that. I go into the trenches. We do the really deep, hard stuff that really pays off in the end and pays off dividends. That is how I describe disempowerment. It's like, let's say, for example, Denisa, somebody comes to me and they say they have imposter syndrome. I'm
right.
like, okay, you have imposter syndrome. Okay, we'll go with it. I already know that that imposter syndrome is a label that is like, it fits, right? It's like a woman can see herself in that definition, which is fine. But I know that that is just a symptom of something deeper.
Mm,
And so a coach who deals with just imposter syndrome might stand on a pier and take out a fishing rod, right? And then fish back in. For me, empowerment and disempowerment is I want to take the industrial size fishing net. And we're going to toss that net as far as we can, and it's going to sink to the bottom, and we're going to slowly drag it back in. What's at the bottom of the ocean? All of the junk and the gunk and the stuff that, like, that's the trenches.
Mm.
So whatever you think like imposter syndrome is, there's something behind it. There's something under it. There's something that's triggering it. So I like to go into the trenches to get women results. Denisa, you and I were both girls. We know what it's like to have these patterns play out. And it's hard and it's painful. And you get to a point where you're like, I've just had enough. That's where empowerment coaching comes in, because we get to the root of the problem and we get results, because I'm results oriented. I'm results driven. I don't want a woman to be coaching with me a year from now, going through the same thing over and over again. That's not fair. That's not fair.
I love what you said about results and getting to the bottom of it, because so my own journey is there was a lot of what you described coming from another country as a
Yeah.
young girl. One of them, loss of my son not that long ago, and just lots of stuff, relationship, tough relationship with food when I was a teen girl, and a lot of sort of there's just a lot of beliefs that that I've been carrying with me that really didn't serve me, and at certain points sort of, protected me from something that no longer I needed protecting from. But once I got the clarity, you go through therapy. I tried, number of them, and it was like, okay, well, you made me kind of connect the dots, but then what do you do, right? And it was not until a coaching session. It's actually a friend of mine. This was couple of years ago, and it was this big aha moment, because I wanted to know, well, how do you then I'm a doer like you, and a grower, and I am a builder and creator, and I'm like, so how do I it continues to sort of feel like it's slowing me down. How do I move through it? And it was just like the light bulb went off. She goes, well, you're a serial overcomer. And this stuff that basically was protecting you from, even though some of these habits were not really greatest, they don't have their role. They don't serve anything. So she had to dig a little deeper, so that it would just sort of free up, free me up. That was already there. My light sort of came up. And after that, I mean, I've been unstoppable. And it's funny because I'm wondering, I don't have patience for people who they come in for advice. You give them limitless advice and they don't do anything about it. I'm a doer. So how do you deal with that if you see people, for extended period of time, you
Right.
work through the limiting beliefs and you kind of work on a plan, and people who are just not doing it?
Well, for me, I mean, a couple of things. Number one, I really try before I start working with clients to make sure we're a good fit. Like
Mm.
that's really important to me. I ask myself two questions. I always do a call with people before to see if we're going to be a good fit. And the first question is like, can I help someone? Am I qualified? Am I the right person? And then number two is, do I want to? Like, do I
Mm.
think I am going to get this person where they want to be? I don't want to blow smoke at anyone. I would rather under promise, over deliver. And Denisa, very, very important to me. When people say you empower women, I say, oh, no, 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 no. I don't. I would never take that away from any woman who decides to go to the trenches and do that work. I help women empower themselves.
Mm.
So there is already this sort of lack of codependency. I always find the first couple weeks of coaching, women need that validation. They need to be seen. They need to be heard. They need to understand that somebody actually gets them. And then slowly but surely, it's like by the time we're done coaching, which is 8 weeks, then we can continue after, but only if you take time off first. Because Denisa, I love that clients love working with me, right? Like I try to bring levity to gravity. I can be silly and, I'll do anything to make women laugh, right? Especially when it gets hard. Like we can get results and do it with a smile as well. But What's most important to me beyond that is great. I love that you love me. It feels good. But I want to know that 382 days from now, when life comes at you, because life will continue to come at you, that you are a changed person like me. When I went through death, divorce, and leaving my job, that was a very different Diana than the Diana who got hit by a Suburban crossing the street and had a brain injury. The
Mm.
brain injury did not feel as difficult as death, divorce, and leaving my job. So how does that happen? Because I had the skills, I had the mindset, I had changed so much. So for me, I want to make sure that my clients in 800 days, when something happens, that they have empowerment skills and that they've changed on such a deep level that they're so empowered that they feel like they can handle it. And what's so fascinating, Denisa, what I hear so often from clients is they always say, I don't know, I just like, I'm a completely different person. I just feel so calm. I feel at peace. I feel like I can handle anything. And that for me, when a woman feels calm and at peace and like she can handle life, baby, you are well on your way. Whatever it is you want to achieve, you can do it from that grounded place. And that's empowerment.
I'm glad you're saying that. You're not making or you're not helping someone become empowered. We are already empowered.
Mhm.
And I always, another thing that I struggle with a little bit,
Yeah.
probably not a popular thing to say, but I'll say it anyway because it's just who I am, is when I hear from other women saying, we're not being treated equally. There's a disparity in a particular field, and that really sucks. And us women, we should stick together. And I'm all about sisterhood and everything. But to me, as someone who came here, no one has brought me anything. But what I've always done is been proactive and went and got it. So I would always say, you know what, I don't care if this is a predominantly male dominant industry. I
Yeah.
mean, I was in financial services, I was in television, I've had many businesses, and I've never felt like I was not treated equally. To me, we're all human beings, and if I wanted something, I went after it,
Yeah.
and there was no one stopping me. So I'm just wondering, if sometimes we're replaying, it's easier to replay those messages in our head, and not just women. I think generally, people like, well, it's easy to say it cannot be done.
Oof.
Or,
Oh,
I mean, I
oh, oh, girl, you're speaking to my soul right now. I mean, listen, there is in my mind from the start of my empowerment career, right? There's always been a distinction between the collective empowerment and personal empowerment. And so there are a lot of organizations out there, Denisa, who really are working to, create equal playing field and really work on this idea of collective empowerment. And they're doing it from the top down. And
right,
I applaud them and I honor them because that needs to happen. What
absolutely.
I'm interested in, though, is real empowerment, authentic empowerment in individual women. My goal is to help women empower themselves so that we can create this idea of collective empowerment, but I'm just doing it from the bottom up. I believe in taking radical responsibility for your life. I believe in looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, okay, what do I need to do? I always turn it on myself
Yeah.
first, right? And once I do that, then imagine if, Denisa, just imagine for one moment, if every single woman took radical responsibility for her own empowerment, defined what an empowered life looked like and felt like for herself, and then went on a journey to cultivate that life for herself. Do you think that we would still be having these conversations if we all did it? We need to do it one woman at a time. And then when one woman does it, we need to turn around and grab the next one by the scruff if we have to, and put her in the elevator and bring her up and show her what it looks like from the empowered mountaintop, and then send her back on her merry way because she's got to figure it out for herself. So
Mm.
Do I think that there's a space and a place for this collective top down? If that's someone's passion and that's what they feel in their heart that they want to do, I'm all for it. But let me tell you, I got you from the back end because I'm going to work from the ground up. And with any luck, girl, we'll meet in the middle.
Love it. Love it. I like I got you from the back end. Just give you a little swift
Yeah.
nudge. You can do this. Yeah, and it's really, I think this is really helpful, even encouraging, young women. I have a 24-year-old daughter, stepdaughters also in their 20s. And, there's just a lot of self-doubt. Some of it comes as a result of, comparing yourselves to others. It's much easier to do these days through social media. And just, where are you supposed to sort of find the strength to tap into that light that's already there? I believe, just like you, it's already there. We just sometimes need someone to help to find it. And so I think working with coaches, someone who can sort of help you find it and then help you pave that journey forward. There's a history, there's time for that, to understand that, connect the dots, but you're not defining yourself by it. It's looking forward. Um, and I think that is so needed, so needed.
Yeah. And, to sort of dovetail on what you're saying, Denise, I think it's so amazing that you are so aware and you have these younger women in your life that you get to impact and mentor and really show them things from maybe a different point of view. I find this whole social media thing really very interesting. And so I see it a little bit from several different points of view. When I came up in the business, and for those of you who don't know, I have over 10,000 hours of live and unscripted television broadcast into 100 million homes under my belt. So at that time, you were one of maybe 50, 60 people on television at any one given time, period, like in the country. And so the come up was different. Like you had to be educated, you had to have skills, you had to have talent, you had to be vetted and audition. And then, you go and you meet all the executives, and it was like a process. Then you end up on television, and then you're one of 50, 60, 70 people, however many, that people look to and they point at and they go, oh, look at her hair. I don't like her hair today. Or they look at you and they're like, I remember this woman sent me an email and she goes, if you insist on wearing a skirt, could you please at least put some makeup on to cover the vein on your leg? And I was like, oh my God. Right. But
Yeah.
somehow back then it was different. And I say back then, just like 15 years ago, right? 10,
Right.
15 years ago, before social media.
Hmm.
Now I look at these young girls, Denise, that is their reality every single
Yep.
day.
Yep.
It's not strangers. It
Hmm.
is their classmate. It is their cousin. It is the girls on the volleyball team. It is, and that is, I'm
Hmm.
sorry, when their brain isn't even fully developed yet, Denise, that is such a difficult position to put these young
Yeah.
girls in. And then on the one hand, it's like, use your voice, but then you better think what everybody else thinks.
Yeah.
You better be an individual, but your hair better be the right color. Like there's so many conflicting messages that are out there today for young women. So let's bring the conversation full circle, Denisa.
Yeah.
How important is it for women to have their own idea of empowerment and to lean on that? It is so important.
Oh, I don't even get me started. And interestingly, we're focusing this conversation on women. Women then we need to lead by example, because we can't say on one hand, and
Yeah.
I'm simplifying it terribly, we can't say we're victims of this and that, and we don't have the same opportunity. Okay. Yet then be trashing, you have the young girls trashing other girls, and in just an awful and mean-spirited way. And I see that. It's this like, I love you. She hangs up and it's like, oh God, I hate her. It's like, and the blocking and the swiping on someone's DM. And it is just like, what is it then? And it's just women just and human beings, we gotta stick together and
Yeah.
support one another. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't, I say this, that, you want to be authentic. That's great, but don't crap on my feed if authentic means being mean-spirited. Because look, it's the work that you do is we accumulate all these experiences and we shape our thoughts and perceptions, and they're very different from somebody else. And then what triggers you may not trigger me.
Mhm.
And then we expect the world and people to say and do the right things in order for us not to be triggered.
Mhm.
So we have to take ownership of it. And so there's no reason why people need to empty that, in my mind, onto those platforms. There are a much smarter way of doing it. Do your own work. Like
Right.
people like you, do your
Yes.
own work.
Exactly. And Denise, I'm sure you've heard that saying, which is, my greatest lessons have come from books and travel, right? And everybody knows that quote. I'm sure I'm butchering it, but I've added to that quote. And I always say my greatest lessons I've learned the most from books, travel, and being around those with whom I seemingly have absolutely nothing in common.
Mm,
Those are the relationships in life. Those are those moments, those hour-long conversations, or however long, you meet someone on a plane and you
yeah.
talk to them for the whole, and you've got nothing in common. But those are the relationships I just want to squeeze like as much juice as I can out of that, because I feel so enriched and I feel like I learned. And if I'm truly empowered, am I triggered? Like, really? Like, what, how specifically can you trigger me when I'm really okay with you doing you and I'm going to do me, and
Yeah.
we all get to be who we are? So I think that, to your point, Denise, that's so weird to me, that it's like we talk about amplifying voices and all of these things, and yet it seems like very, very much not okay as long as
I know.
unless your voice is a specific tone and a specific whatever, it seems like it's not okay. And I just think we need to walk it back, Denisa, to your point, just walk it back, and remember, everybody gets to be who they are.
Mhm.
Everybody.
Yep.
It's my job to decide whether or not we can like be copacetic with one another, but that's my decision. But you get to be whoever you are.
You know what? And once we get all of us to that realization that the reason why we will never, ever, ever exactly agree on everything, I mean, all of us collectively, is because where we came from and our upbringings are so different. And it's that moment in time that something happened that I didn't experience it the way you did. It will never happen. But if we can at least come to a realization that I'm being triggered right now, it's my stuff because of that, because we came from different environments, there'll be less conflict. That's really all it is. I have this thing, and I tell my husband, because we're both in a similar field. We deal with divorcing people,
Yeah.
attorneys primarily. And I said, hey, it's not your stuff. It's not your stuff. Don't take it so personally. Do not take it personally, actually, at all.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
from a neurolinguistic programming standpoint, like from a brain function standpoint, I think it's so interesting that you bring this up, because it's your map of the world, right? It's
mhm,
it's how you're informed. And so every single thing, Denisa, that we believe, that we think, that we say, that we do, all of it is subject to patterns. And these patterns are dictated by the way in which your brain codes information and learning.
mm,
And information and learning is everything that comes at you throughout the course of a day. And you're automatically, subconsciously, you are starting to categorize those things, and your belief about it automatically gets triggered. And that's where going under the hood and looking back and seeing, where specifically does this belief come from? How
mm,
specifically did I come to believe that? I always say, I'm not here, Denisa, to tell anybody what to think. I think there are way too many people out there telling you and me and everybody else what to think. That I have zero interest. I think that it is the height of hubris. I don't know everything. But what I do know for sure is that the second that we as adults, and I specifically, adults especially, the moment we start to question how specifically we came to a belief, where it comes from, what is it telling me? I think that is ground zero for the empowerment journey. Start questioning yourself instead of just pointing the finger at everybody else and saying, oh, I don't agree with you. Who cares if I agree with you? Like, who am
Yeah.
I? I'm not really not that important, Denisa.
Just detach yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. To
yeah.
stay in a moment of joy constantly, regardless, just like own it. And then no one
Yes,
can
yes.
alter it.
You know,
Yeah.
people always say to me, and it's my favorite compliment when people say to me, they're like, "You have the best energy. Like, you have the best energy." Like, I was at a convention last week and I was walking through the convention center, and one of the ushers, she goes, "Oh, I'm here for all of your sunshine." She's like, "You have the best energy." And I really do think that it's because of the fact that it's like genuinely, I think that's empowerment. When you can get to
Yeah.
ground zero and understand, like, girl, I ain't perfect, you ain't perfect, nobody's perfect, but you can be in a state of joy and you can be in a state of happiness regardless of what's going on around you. It sounds trite, it sounds simplistic, it sounds fantastical, but once you experience it and you get there, you realize how impactful it is, not just on your own life, but Denisa, on the people around you.
Yeah. See now, we will continue this. Definitely, this will be continued. This is much needed. This is stuff people need to hear. And I am grateful. I believe things happen for a reason. And so we'll definitely have you back. And Diana, thank you so much for sharing yourself with us and your incredible story.
Thank you, Denisa, so much for reaching out, for having me, and for allowing me to talk about, what I consider to be real empowerment in women. And I am doing my very first ever free empowerment journey for women. If they would like to join, they can find it at my Instagram at Good Girl Mafia, at Diana Perkovic, and at my website as well. I'll put it in the link. I'll give you the link, Denisa. I think every woman should have access to her empowerment journey. And after a year and a half of sitting on the sidelines, my goal for 2024 personally is impact. And the best way you can have impact is to do something meaningful for free. So I have all of the details up. Thank you for letting me come on today and talk about that and sharing my story as well. And I would love to come back and do it again.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned it. I was going to ask you about that. And I wanted to really for our viewers and listeners to get to know you and your style. And undoubtedly, you have the experience and you're living it and through is what you are conveying and sharing, with your clients. So I am so thrilled that you are offering that as a resource. We'll definitely post a link to it for everyone to take advantage of it, and we will promote it on all social media channels as well. And for our viewers and our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Beyond the Bar Podcast. Follow us on all social media channels. And until next time, stay curious and inspired.